Hello, Babru.
Hello, Uli.
Welcome to episode 2 of our podcast.
It's amazing. Nice to be here again.
It's 1 week after we recorded the last one.
Yeah.
It's 1st of December of 2024 today.
Yes.
How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. It has been a very intense time, not on the surface. I mean, I live a very still life, although I'm still working part-time. But within me, it has been intense, in a good way. So I feel lots of good energies.
That's good.
Yeah.
We might deep dive into that, depending on what you want to share. It's Moyoni, means there is no script.
Yeah.
There are no specific ideas we have in mind. I mean, there are tons of topics that came up already in the first episode.
Yes.
But we are just going with the flow.
Yes.
So we will see what we will talk about today. I do want to start with mentioning that I announced the first episode and introduced you as a rebel in your field. And before this episode today, I actually looked up the definition of rebel.
You did?
And I was surprised to see that most of the definitions I get have to do with an opposition to government.
Oh.
And that is obviously not what or I wanted to say.
No.
But then I did also, I continued searching because I couldn't believe that that is the only definition of the word rebel, because we use it differently.
Yes, we do.
In everyday life, I think. So other definitions I found was just opposing existing ideas and routines.
Yeah, that is more like it.
With a positive connotation, actually, to come up with something new or something better.
Yeah.
That was what I had in mind when I used rebel.
Yeah, because that was my intention then. As I told you, I was never politically active in those days.
Yeah.
When most of the people were, actually. That was a norm.
Yes.
But I stayed with I have a more individual perspective in that way.
I am personally actually very interested in politics, and the more I get involved, the more I understand that I can go back in history, a short time or long time, and I discover very interesting things in politics which make me even more interested.
So tell me a bit about that.
Well, I was just about to say, but this podcast is not about politics.
Okay. But it's about you. You don't have to go into the content, but tell me more about how come you are digging into that.
This podcast is about the heart and speaking from heart to heart. And what I discovered at some point in politics, it's not about the heart.
No.
It's about something else. And in the first episode, I remember myself saying that I used to be naive, and I might still be. But I lost some of that naivety because I just uncovered certain truths that I thought were the truth.
Yeah.
And I came to realize that no, not necessarily everything is like I was told or what I learned. So I actually learned to listen more to my heart and my own intuition.
Yeah.
And by doing that more and more and more, I discovered that many things in my life are different when I look at them from the heart.
It is. Because then we are not dualistic. By dualistic I mean that is the human perspective. As we spoke a little about last time. That we are both that and that. We are both good and evil. We are both strong and weak. We are both that and both that as human beings. And that means that I think we have that concept within us to learn about what love is and what love is not. So we need to experience also difficult things to understand what we like and what we love. So when it comes to the heart, it's not dualistic anymore. Then we just are. We just are in the situation, and that makes it so much richer to make decisions from the heart. But we need the other parts to learn, I believe. How can we know that it's light now if we haven't understood the dark in the night? It's the reference point.
I understand that. How does it work if two people interact with each other? Or even more. I feel like in the dualism that you just described, and there might be many different shades of those facets.
Oh yes.
But if I understand you right, when it's about the heart, it's clear. It's from the heart.
So I see it.
So how does that work when people interact with each other? If something comes from the heart from one person, it might not necessarily be understood in the right way from the other person. Or is that not true because it is coming from the heart?
And it's all about perception, how we perceive. So when you and I are sitting here, we are all different. So we have like not being at the same podcast in a way. You experience, you have your perception and I have mine. And what we can do is to share. How is this for you? How is this for me? So it comes to two people when one of them is coming out of love in that moment or in that time. I mean, we are not 100%, none of us. But let's say it's a moment when someone is really speaking truly from the heart and the other one is not. I used to say that there is nothing as provoking as love. It's very provoking when you have not experienced much love, because then you might want it, of course, longing for it, but at the same time when you experience love and have had a life of pain, difficulties, it becomes provoking because it reminds you of what you do not have had. So it's not that easy to say, yes, I want love, and then I just receive it, or I just give it. That's the learning part, as we human beings have. So I see it.
And are you saying that if somebody speaks from the heart, the other one has his or her own perception, but it's always perceived as something positive or something coming from the heart?
Not always. It depends on your rucksack. It depends on your previous experiences. Hopefully, because we have many wonderful meetings with people, most people are able to recognize when love comes. And most people get happy and find their own love. But I'm just saying that that is what I have learned so much, like meeting couples for 40 years, including myself as a couple, that it's not that easy to say, just speak from the heart, both of us. Because we have our we talked last time about fear. And that is from the past. That's why when we spoke about being in the now, that is so important. Try to stay in the now. then it's easier to receive something new. Even if I have had former bad experiences, I can see, oh, this person is showing me love in a big, not romantic, but love as a whole concept. This person is really wishing me well. This person is really coming from his or her heart.
We were talking about politics. How does that work or not work in the field of politics?
I was thinking about while you were talking, because I truly believe that all these, isms, communism, fascism, all these ending on ism, they started, I believe, with a few people, not very few, but some people who, from their heart, wanting to make a difference. Maybe not all isms, but many of the movements in society wanting to build a better world, They started with some people wanting that. And then, so I often see that, and maybe that's my experience from the 70s, that many really, I could sense that it was true, they wanted that. But then there were many followers who did not really, in my perception, they wanted just to be part of the group. This is something exciting happening, and they wanted to be in it. So, for instance, at those time, at the end of the 70s, I was living up north in Umeå, and every Saturday when I was going into this town, there was, what you say, this banderole.
The banners.
Yeah, and people, and it was different countries every Saturday, but the words were the same.
What do you mean by different countries?
As the target, get out of this country, or make this better in this country, or whatever. So it was like they were picking one different country even every Saturday, in my perception. So I was finding this is a bit strange, and I saw that in my perception there was a few who really came from the heart in doing that. They really were authentic. But many of them, they just wanted to be part of it, to find some meaning in their life.
Okay. So you are saying that in politics it might not necessarily work from heart to heart because people feel they want to belong to a group.
Yes.
Or an idea or whatever.
Yeah.
And they dismiss their heart and their true self, and they just go with whatever is modern at that moment.
That's true, and that's why I believe the individual perspective is so important. They asked me at that time, I was about 30, 35. They said, because they found me a bit progressive at that time, So they said, oh, Barbara, can't you we are women liberation. And of course I wanted women to be liberated. It was needed at that time. But I didn't want to do it in a group. I didn't want to make individual experience as a norm. I wanted each person to find their own universe. Sharing and be together, yes, but not making it, this is how it should be. In that way. I never wanted that way.
I had this conversation with a colleague last week. Yes, I remember. We were actually talking about politics. And he mentioned that, I don't know, I think we were discussing a certain concept. And we were discussing whether we agree or not. And we were basically both not agreeing to what we were talking about.
Yeah.
And then he said something very interesting. well, but politics, they need, like the politicians, they need to take some decisions and they need to do something. So, you know, it's good enough, basically, he admitted, more or less, although he didn't agree. And then I responded, and he actually asked me, well, we don't know how we would do it better.
No, we
and
don't.
I responded, well, I think I do. We do know it better.
Like what?
Like exactly what you just said, enabling people to come from their own.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't say heart, but in the end, coming from the own heart, doing what is true to oneself.
Yeah.
And being free, basically, to decide for oneself what is right or what is wrong.
Yeah.
And not being tied into certain ideas or certain groups, like in the example of the banners that you mentioned in Umeå. This week it's about this, next week it's about that. Well, what is your opinion? What is your truth?
Exactly.
What is your free will?
Yeah.
If we were able to act each individual on the own will, wouldn't the place be a better one?
So then,
or maybe this is too naive and it doesn't work.
I think it takes time. It's not everyone who has the treasure of really knowing what he or she wants. Take some time, maybe, to be true to yourself.
Yeah, that's interesting, and we spoke about that too. And I said, well, you can find out, and you can get some support.
Yeah.
So if you don't know, then I will help you to find out.
Agree.
Instead of telling you
that's democracy.
What I would think
that's
is
real democracy, I think. So my reflection is, I mean, I'm speaking about what happened 50 years ago. And you said last time, we talked a lot about authoritarian. And what would that be today? You had that question hanging in the air.
Yep.
And I have had the same in another way, reflecting that how is it possible in this society that it was left in the 70s. There were 5 parties beyond the left-wing party. And now it is the other way around in this society. I mean, today. So what has happened to all those people who were there and then move over there? Are we so, how do you say, how can we move so quickly? Quickly, 50 years, but still it was far out there, and now I believe, in my perception, it's far out there. So, and all these people in the middle, I have in a picture saying that there are some people at that end and the polarity on the other end, and then maybe 50% they want to be together mainly, and that is why it can go like this. But it's not only bad, it's something like we learn for each. I see it as a spiral. But I think it's amazing how I'm stunned how it can be so totally 180 degrees. What's your take on that? What do you think about that?
When I hear this, it raises many questions and thoughts. First of all, I was born in the time you just described, so
exactly.
I only know from reading.
And that's how it is in society as well.
Yeah. It actually started, maybe I can reflect on this like this. It actually started a long time ago when I was choosing a party to vote for. And I was taking it seriously and trying to understand the program of the different parties. And I started reading programs. And of course I got a lot of information from the news or listening. I listened to a lot of politics talk shows. So I really wanted to get an own opinion to make my cross at the right spot. And the more I thought about it, this is funny, I'm now distracted by my cat.
I hear that. They are with us.
We can probably hear it in the podcast too. Usually the doors are open, so they just go into the rooms and take their favorite spot. But now the doors are closed.
They want to join only.
So I was trying to understand where it makes most sense for me to make my cross. And the more I thought about it and the more I researched and learned about different parties and programs, the more confused I got, because I would have liked to make a small cross here and a small cross there and a small cross, all over the place. And that's not possible, you have to choose. So I always chose, but nowadays I wouldn't know where to put my cross, and I speak a lot about it with other people, colleagues, friends, and they have a very similar situation.
Yeah.
So if you speak about the situation you just described, I actually don't exactly know what you mean. I mean, I understand what you are saying, but how come it is possible in such a short time that it moved from here to there? How come? So is it really a shift from here to there? Or is it maybe the same fundamental things that people are longing for? And maybe in those times they were more met on that side, and now there are more met on the other side. And if so, which things are those? And I think it's just we're nailing it, because that's the topic of the podcast. It's about the heart. And I feel like over time, people are realizing more and more that they want connections from heart to heart.
Yeah.
And now obviously when I say heart to heart, I use this term because the podcast is about this. I could use other words. I could use people want meaningful relationships.
Exactly.
And they want to understand that their communities and their governments take good care of them, of societies, of developments, and they might feel it's not happening so much what they are expecting. So it comes back. So my reflection to what you said comes back to the question we had earlier. Does it work in politics?
In my view, we need it for practical reasons. As your friend said, we need to make decisions. Build houses and whatever. But the values, the idea that one set of values can solve everything, I think we have passed that as a society in many ways. It is like being a teenager on the individual. We oppose to our parents. We want to find our own life. So often we try to do the opposite. Then next generation make the person who had been opposition to that, next generation will oppose to him or her. So I think it goes in rounds in that way.
Why would somebody want to oppose?
I think that is very natural, not having to oppose. We can do it in other ways, but it is the first way of finding out what do I want. You know, the little child of 2 says no to very much. Start by what you don't want to be able to find out what you want. So that's a more process. So hopefully you don't stay in the opposing thing. You get further and find what do you want to do or build or whatever. But it's part of the process to find out what you really want. And maybe that's the same in a bigger collective.
I never thought about it like this. Obviously, when I think about children, yes, I understand. And now that you say it might work like this in bigger societies or groups, yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. If I reflect on myself, why did I oppose in the situations where I opposed? Or actually, I am opposing right now with producing this podcast. This is a kind of opposition too, because I feel, or we both feel, that others might profit from what we are speaking about because they don't find it so often in other areas. So why would I oppose? I think because I feel like somebody or an idea or a group or a culture or a subculture wants to push me into a certain direction I don't want to go or I don't want to be pushed to.
Yes.
I have been thinking about opposition only from that perspective.
So now that I'm a bit older, I'm grateful for many of those situations where I found, no, I don't want that, or I don't want that, because that has sharpened me in what I do want.
Yeah.
So that's how we do it. The thing is to not be almost 80 and stay in opposition to everything. Still know that I don't want that, but be more focused on what I do want. That's part of it. But that's the human learning, I believe. That's about the dualism.
Yeah.
That I talked about. We need to find out. It's a way of getting to know ourselves.
So in that dualism, is that one of the reasons why opposition in political party systems in an ideal world also works well? Which means that if there is an opposition, that opposition is questioning what the reigning party is doing and is like correcting.
Yeah.
Is it yeah, okay. I have a question, but at the same time I'm trying to answer it myself.
Yeah, do that.
In terms of the dualism, because it's, well, what I learned in life, it's never black or white. It's never either or.
Yeah.
It's something
Both
in between. And so my question is, how does that work in political parties and in politics?
For me, I think both as individuals and in development in groups and also in society, we need to test that and that by experience, not only theory. So I think that is what is healthy in democracy when there is an alive opposition. And that has been my way of voting also, to find out that there is a balance. Whatever that or that there is someone to look into it. The same on an individual basis. Yeah, that's what I believe. But I'm really fascinated on how this goes in big circles, and I believe also that many young people today are. I mean, in my days we had a hope of building a better world. Maybe there are that today also in some groups, but I also hear a lot of we've done that doesn't work, and this disillusion in a way, and that is sad. And I think that is important to see that the new concept, in my belief, is that we need to go to our heart, as we are doing here, and build from there. Not having the idea that one concept will save the world. We are all humans.
Now I'm thinking of my teenager kids.
Yeah.
The new generation. That's
Yeah.
the new generation.
Yeah.
What do you think? Have you worked with children also?
More when I was young. My first 12 years, but that's a long time ago. I worked with schools and preschools and child psychiatry.
I wonder what that generation needs and what coming from the heart means to them in this current
Really?
situation.
Yeah, we should ask them.
Yeah.
Because it goes so quickly now. But I have discussions with some of my grandchildren. I think that's very exciting to just listen. And some of that I don't understand. Like young adults, they are doing work that I truly, you would probably understand more. But to me, when it comes to tech and computers and so on, it's not my field. So you would understand more. But I think by every age in this, it's so natural for them. And even it goes so quickly today. So they have other ways of thinking. And some of them even come with an open heart from the beginning. Many of them, I think, of the small children. So you say that what will happen to humanity, but I have hope. I see this, but we are not. They are different, and we have difficulties as adults, to cope with them in schools and so on.
Yeah.
They need different.
Yeah. However, this brings me to my strong assumption and opinion that in the end, they don't need anything different. They need the same as any human being.
Oh, yes.
And the things they speak about that you don't understand is just words.
Yeah.
Because the concept and the underlying structure is the same. It reminded me of a situation a few days ago. A colleague of mine was describing a situation where her father had this challenge of getting some text on the mobile phone from a website to an email. So he wanted to copy something.
Yeah.
And he didn't know how to do it. So she explains to her father, well, just mark the text, click, here and copy it, and then just paste it into the email. A concept that he understood from a logical process point. But then he asked, yeah, but where do I store what I copy? And that question I found amazing. And it proves, I think, that the core is always the same. So he understands that it has to be stored somewhere. So, but he doesn't know that there is a virtual clipboard and it's being stored automatically when he clicks copy. That he doesn't understand, but he doesn't need to understand as long
No.
as he understands the concept of transferring
Yeah.
from A to B, and it is digital, so it needs to be stored somewhere. Where do I store it? I found that amazing.
Yeah.
And I think it shows that the basis, the fundament is always the same.
And you are a bridge between the worlds when it comes to tech and all that. Don't you think that? At least I experienced that when you say that, you can say that because of also the computers. You told last time that you
Yes,
have
yeah.
invested times in that. So then it's natural, and you bridge over to my generation where it's not natural. I was in the middle of business with deadlines and all that when I hosted a big event in my field in 2001, and I was part of it in Italy with another in 1998. 1998 it was all in fax. I had all that, and my parents were looking, oh wow. 2001 fax was gone and it was computers, but they were not so easy, they were not compatible, they were easily getting virus in them and so on. And so it was like, ooh, what will happen? It was an uneasy feeling because you had at the same time lots of responsibility and not sure in your hands with the tech. So that's my experience. So I have I managed the motor road, so to say, but I don't have the confidence in my heart really with the tech, because I have those memories that can I trust that? It's certainly my fault if something goes wrong. So I ask my younger generation in the family. They help me.
And I agree. Probably the generation of my age, between 30 and 60 maybe, I think that's probably always the
bridge.
The bridge.
Yeah.
Exactly. And when you speak about telefax, I remember that time.
Yeah.
In my early days working, when clients sign contracts,
Yeah.
or we sign contracts and sent it to the clients, it was very often sent via telefax because it was just immediate. And I remember the situation. I mentioned that my father worked for an airline, so I grew up in the airline business. And I know that at that times telex, that was the word used, telex were sent. So from the cockpit of an airline, still in the air, flying to somewhere, in the landing process to an airport, they sent telex to the station managers at the airport to communicate whatever they had to communicate with. So what is the difference between a telex that is sent from the cockpit to an airport in an instant with an SMS message that is sent from one mobile phone to the other?
No, not the big difference. I think it's not about actually the tech or the content, because they are today very much better for the users than it was when they was on the way, so to say. So I think it's more, and we talked about how history I have some hang-ups from the young days in that. It means I don't trust myself as I would like to in this field.
Yeah, and my hypothesis is that it is because of pure knowledge. So of course there's a huge difference between telex and SMS, in the back end, in the technology.
Yeah. I don't have to know that.
No, yeah, and that's what I mean.
Yeah.
We send SMS messages to each other.
Oh, that's no problem.
And you use emoticons. So you are that's not the baseline for calling somebody modern and innovative or not, but you are somebody who is open to technology and using it. I know others in your age that just, dismiss it completely because they feel that's not something they can get acquainted to. But in the end, the fundamental, I guess that's the way I think, it's about understanding that there's a capability of sending a message instantly.
Yeah.
And today it's with a mobile phone and via the internet.
And most of it I like and enjoy, and really. And still, when I speak to the very youngest in my family, they have another kind of brain in a way. It's quick like that, and I think that's exciting. I'm curious about them because they are the future, and they will create this world that we are into.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And in many ways they're used to that everything is quick, and that is hopeful also for the motivation of change. Everything took much longer time in my young days, and this I think there is a hope in that.
And it reminds me of this podcast, between the idea and the decision to do it and the execution, the production of the first episode. It was a week or so?
Hardly a week, a few days. Yeah. So I like that. And that was also what we talked about it last time. You asked me how, because I recognize that kind of energy. I speak about energy because that's a feeling in you, that you have that fast from idea to action.
And thank you. I feel appreciated.
You are.
And I would like to give it back, because you were really fast too. You might remember the situation when I asked you, and you were really quick to say no.
Yes.
In the first moment, because we had a misunderstanding of the idea of the podcast. And once we discussed about it being in the way it is now, you were fast again and you said yes. So, I mean, when we talked about it, I had no clue how you would react, or if you would be agreeing to this idea. But first of all, you were really fast in your decisions, as just described. And second, you are very open and open-minded to this idea and to the technology. So you are still very young. That's an evidence for it.
Thank you. You are taking care of the technology. I'm happy to be here and open, and I'm happy that technology can help us in doing this. And I'm happy I don't have to deal with it. Yeah. So, is that for now, or how?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. This episode was not supposed to be about politics, and suddenly it was.
Yeah.
But it was a very interesting conversation with you. Thank you so much. When revising the content, maybe we can think about things we would like to talk about next time.
Yes.
To pick it up again, some thoughts we didn't maybe elaborate on enough. Or we just speak about another topic that matters in December of 24.
Exactly. It is about changing your perspective and mine. with the common ground of the heart.
Nothing to add. Thank you, Barbara, for today.
You're welcome. You too.